Hello, everyone. I am Crystal Phillips, and welcome to this Biohub chat. We are very excited to be speaking with all of you and sharing an incredible story. So I'm Crystal Phillips. I am with Thin Air Labs. And if you don't know, Thin Air Labs is a venture capital firm here in Calgary. We're also a growth studio, and we're all about creating human value by helping early stage startups scale globally, just like NanoTess. I'm also on the leadership team and a proud member of the Biohub, which is an incredible new organization, relatively new, and they get innovation to market. They have scalable lab, an office space, expertise, community connections, and access to capital, all to help emerging ventures commercialize. So just what we need in this city, let alone this province, as we start to see the health startup ecosystem just explode. And it's very exciting to be a part of it. So let's get started here. We have Megan and Julian, some of the most incredible founders I have ever come across. I'll let them start with just an introduction, a little bit about their interesting backgrounds.
Thank you, Crystal. So my name is Megan Leslie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NanoTess. And my background is actually in engineering, then finance, and then over to workforce transformation. So done a lot of different roles and seen business from a lot of different angles.
And my name is Julian Mulia, and I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of NanoTess. And yeah, I think what's exciting about us is that we have those unconventional backgrounds. So my background's in engineering, chemical engineering, and then I also have a master's in engineering as well. And more from my work experience, it's in management consulting. So it's like a professional problem solver. So it has helped a lot in the startup environment.
Well, and you're starting to prove that to be true. You are an incredibly successful startup and you have so much creativity, and I think it comes from that unconventional background. So tell me a little bit about NanoTess and what got you both started in this very different from managing consulting and engineering background.
Yeah, I think for us, NanoTess is very personal. Two years ago, the reason we started this, I unfortunately lost both my parents due to chronic conditions. It was a tough place to be, and we had two options: either use the marvelous technology that we found with our third co-founder to try to do an impact in the world, or not. So the decision that we did is like, we don't want other people to go through what we did, and that really became personal and empowered into our mission in NanoTess. So here we are today, like 2 years later, after that hard decision, because we did left our comfortable jobs in management consulting for a very risky proposition, but with a huge reward that today we're actually helping our families and friends and Canadians to actually recover from chronic wounds.
Well, I'm sure I can say, especially when everyone finds out more about NanoTess, thank you on behalf of all humans who are affected by this, because it's pretty profound. Now, NanoTess has only been around for a couple of years. What have you been working on? I know you've been up to a lot because you had a very exciting announcement just a few weeks back.
Yeah, so we've been moving quickly. I think the story that Julian told has been the fire underneath of us to make sure that we're getting this product and technologies commercialized, validated, and to the market in a way that is being able to start servicing those who need them most. Within 2 years, we've incorporated as a commercial entity. That's NanoTess. We have validated all of our data in Canadian and third-party laboratories for our wound care technology. And we set up pilot manufacturing with the Biohubx. We've been able to use different sources of federal, military, and provincial funding, as well as equity capital, to be able to move forward quickly. And then most recently, the excitement news is that we were able to get our medical device approved by Health Canada. So we are now officially able to be exactly what Julian is saying, saving limbs and saving lives with our wound care product.
Wow. I mean, it's incredible. Even though I was part of the announcement a few weeks ago, I'm still like got goosebumps thinking about how much you've been able to accomplish in a couple of years, and all for this incredible, impactful mission. So congrats on that. And there's a lot to unpack here in this story of a life sciences company going all the way from concept to now commercialization. Focusing on the regulatory portion, that's a challenging pathway to go through. What was your experience, and what did you learn throughout this process that maybe others could learn from?
Yeah, regulatory is a really fun and frustrating part of being a life science company. I think what we learned, the biggest thing that we took away from it is to keep your advisors close and learn who to listen to. So with our technology, stepping back, we make nanomaterials. So materials that can be naturally plentiful sourced, can be metabolized by the body. We transform them into new nanomaterials that have a new value. So if you look at it, if you looked at coal and diamonds, they're both made out of carbon, but the way they're structured provides very different value. We're doing the same thing, but with material science for solving health problems like healing chronic wounds. So in our regulatory perspective, if you just look at it from a 30,000 foot perspective, initially we were told, no, you're a drug. That's it. This is what you are. That's your path. But when we prodded and tried to learn how to communicate the technology, what we were communicating is that we are a material. If you think of it at the macro level, you put a material on your skin, it's not a drug. It's a device. So we were able to learn how to communicate our story, how to take the feedback from the questions that we were hearing from our advisors to better understand what were the gaps in what we were communicating versus what people were hearing. And I think going through that with a trusted source, a trusted community, was really helpful, because then when we went to Health Canada and the FDA, our story was very clear. We knew what we were able to articulate it, and they were able to come back and confirm, yes, this is what you are. And that was really helpful. So one of the early pieces of advice that we didn't listen to, and we're grateful for it, was just ask Health Canada what you are. Don't just ask. If you don't know how to communicate it yet, definitely do the work on figuring out what you may be. And there's a ton of resources out there. We personally used the group out of University of Calgary, the Impact Clinical Trials group, and then they really helped us formulate that story. And I'm sure there's countless others in Alberta that could support that as well.
I think my big takeaway, Crystal, was as a founder, you have the responsibility to read if it was a board game getting to commercialization, it's read the rules. So we are very fortunate that in Canada, it's very clear. These are the rules. You can find them online. And it gives you a level of expertise that you can gain quickly to make judgment calls and see if the advice that you're getting is in the right direction. So we learned pretty quickly that and no one's an expert, especially when you're disrupting and creating new things. So you have to put sometimes the expert hat and say, okay, is this the advice that is going in the right direction? Go back to the rules of the game and then figure out if this is the right advice that you should follow.
Wow, so that's a lot of navigation. And Julian, I always appreciate your analogies. You were known for that to me. It really helps explain things. And Megan, everything that you said was a great example of also parking your ego. Like, you were so open, both of you, talking to many different advisors, but then also not taking it so seriously, but also kind of judging it, asking other people, and ultimately being the founders yourself to make the ultimate decision. And it's so generous of you to share some of your learnings, like don't just ask Health Canada. Make sure that you have done the proper work to do knowledge translation, science communication, and have your story straight before you then go to Health Canada. So really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And on the manufacturing side of things. How did you get started setting up your operations in Calgary?
So I think we're in a very exciting times, and if there's any founder out there listening to this, the Calgary ecosystem is starting to look like this set of stairs that are put in place allows the startups to like, hey, I just need a quick laboratory wet lab, and then there's that availability for you to do it close to the university. And then if you want to keep working and scaling, now I need a private space to do this, and then that's where that space in the innovation community was filled by Biohub in our perspective, where now you need a certain separation from research institutions and having your own space for your private manufacturing and international certifications, where you need to move fast. You cannot be trapped in bureaucracy, or you have to be evolving like in the startup space. So that allowed us to go all the way from navigating the Calgary ecosystem all the way from concept, R&D, and moving really quickly all the way to like full commercialization.
And with that, we actually still operate 2 laboratories. So we have our private manufacturing, which we've been able to scale from laboratory scale manufacturing into pilot. So did all the engineering work to make sure this is a repeatable manufacturing process, and then get third-party audited on that for quality manufacturing for medical devices. And then we still operate out of a really nimble model within the Life Science Innovation Hub, where we can utilize their expert advisory hours as well, in addition to what we gain from Biohubx. So when Julian says the ecosystem is primed for life sciences, it really is a great opportunity to be in this space in Calgary.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And for anyone who's looking to navigate this ecosystem, what could you share with them about how did you find those experts, and which resources have been most critical in your journey? You mentioned a couple there.
Yeah, there's been so many, and I think the biggest piece is to get involved. It could be joining an accelerator program. It could be working with a life science ecosystem partner. It could be communicating with the Alberta Innovates and the non-dilutive funding providers. There are so many individuals who have a ton of expertise that they can bring to the table. And the biggest piece is prioritizing them on who you need to talk to when, just because as founders, you can get really busy talking to people, and you need to have the time to actually get stuff done too. So that was one of the big learnings, is there's so many amazing people we can talk to that we need to plan out when we do that so our calendars don't fill up. And then to the initial point that you repeated, Crystal, is advisors are people who've been there and done that. They come with a great set of experience. They don't always know what you're going through. So don't be afraid, especially like us, unconventional in our backgrounds, relatively young, starting a life science company. We often have to say, I don't think that's appropriate for us. And learning how to say that, learning how to still be humble and taking the feedback, but then learning from their questions, because they're usually right on something. You've just miscommunicated something, or you didn't understand it right. So definitely learning if you come into like a diversity with advisors. I think that's one of the things we learned really early on, and it's helped us really learn the most from the network available to us.
Yeah, I think a big skill as a founder is to find that golden nugget behind something that is against what you think is the right direction, but always listening behind why are they thinking that way. So then we learned a lot that way too, and evolved our pitch, evolved our a way to approach the market, and we keep using that philosophy to learn and how do we keep getting this to people and help.
It's always nice to hear that. That's great advice for not only a founder, but for anybody in life. I have the privilege of meeting very successful people from all different paths. And I find that one of the common denominators is just this like intense curiosity in other people and absorbing information from all the different angles. So really cool to hear that from both of you. And, you know, speaking of advice to other aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience, they must be curious about how on earth does a day look like for both of you? I mean, I see you at the Venture Forum last week. You're on the YYC Tech softball team. You're in the office. You're working hard. You're at Platform Calgary, at Biohub. Like, what does it look like for you two?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it consistently transforms. So one of the exciting parts that we really enjoy about being founders, and even our employees enjoy about working in a startup, is no 2 days ever really feel the same. It is essentially an art of prioritization to the extreme, because you think about it, we have a summit to climb, to continue to climb. We're slowly working our way up there, but there's still so much road ahead that needs to be tackled. And the ability to start your day or start your week or start your month by saying what needs to get done now versus what's nice to have versus I can probably do this in a year from now and it wouldn't change the course or directory of my time. So we spend a lot of our time doing that for ourselves and then also doing that for our team so that we make sure everyone's aligned on what needs to occur and when. And then how we all play a role in moving NanoTess forward and aligning on that common goal to do so. Right now, we're in commercialization trying to sell, so our days are consumed primarily in meetings with clinicians, nurses, health system partners, ecosystem partners, trying to launch some really big and exciting projects for NanoTess across Canada. And then next month, once those are launched, it'll probably be more in the lab. And now we are fully manufacturing product. The whole company is involved in making nanosub and putting it into boxes and tubes. And then the month after that, we'll probably be analyzing data and in front of the computer again. So the themes change, and that's what I meant at the beginning. It is never a dull moment in the day of life of a founder or early stage employee.
Yeah, I think it's we are strong believers on. I think Megan has this concept. She calls it like work-life integration rather than balance, because balance sees it as two opposite things. But when you wake up and actually, it's part of we spend a lot of time at work, but it's part of our life and it's part of our reason why we're working. That is very exciting to do work that is impacting so many people, and you have a purpose. And we hire people because of that purpose as well. We have employees who we supported their family through wound care support, and now they just the one thing they wanted to do was work for us because they saw the impact that we could do. So that type of purpose guides a lot of like work-life balance, integration, and yeah, there's going to be long days, but I think you cannot disrupt or change something without putting the effort and the hours.
I love that. Work-life integration. I'm going to use that. So, well, the other thing I'm curious about is you both have, like you said, unconventional background, engineering backgrounds, and no previous healthcare experience specifically. What advice do you have to all of those anyone out there who wants to work and add value to an industry that's maybe unfamiliar to them, but where they want to make impact? Do you have any advice for them?
It's a great point, and I think we actually learned this before NanoTess. Julian and I both entered our careers as management consultants. So we worked for Deloitte in different areas where we were focused on solving the Fortune 500 companies' biggest problems. We were like the SWAT team of problem solving. And when you went in as a junior consultant into these firms, you didn't know anything about them. You knew what you could read on the internet, but you didn't necessarily know their business model. So I think between us, I worked in one of the largest beer and beverage companies in the world, all the way to oil and gas, traditional Calgary. Julian did military work where you can't find anything online or Google to support you?
I know a lot about sausage manufacturing, which is one of those random facts.
If you're dropped into these industries that you don't have a background in, you don't know what you're doing, but you're pulling everything you've learned and those transferable skills, they're a really exciting place to be for a problem solver. So when we started NanoTess, it was a very similar feeling where you're jumping into a new industry, but you take that mindset of I'm going to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, and I'm going to ask for help. Because we know when you're working in a big entity like Deloitte, you're never alone. So we built the same method with NanoTess, is that even though we are the founders, we are not alone. We have an incredible network of supporters who we can ask questions to, who have deep life science experience or postdoc, PhD, technical science experience too. And we pull those people in. And the biggest skill that we learned in consulting, and we take it with us every day in NanoTess, is the ability to take and learn from all of your surroundings. It don't have to be leaders or advisors. They can even be our employees, our parents, our family and friends and uncles and aunts who have ideas. Listen, and then determine what the next steps could look like for NanoTess and where they fit in that like ultimate prioritization timeline that we're on. And so the unconventional gets us to think outside of the box, but also stay really humble that we don't know what we are doing in certain situations, but we do know we have the capability to figure it out with the support of our network.
Mm-hmm.
Great answer. I just have a couple more questions, but I wanted to throw it out to the audience. If they have any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat and we can address them after my two. The advantage of hosting. So I'm curious what's next for NanoTess. You've done so much in 2 years. What's the next 2 years going to look like, do you think?
It's hard to say. Sometimes looking 2 years ahead it's a lot, but like in the short term right now, we're doing big projects with provincial health systems and collaborating with physicians and nurses that have seen firsthand the benefit that we can provide to their patients. So if there's someone out there that's listening to this and have seen the massive problem of chronic wounds, we're here. Our doors are open. We're here to showcase what our technology can do, what we can do for people, and the training that we can provide as well. It's going to be creation of a broader team that requires for this. It's a holistic approach to wound care that we're trying to think. It might not just be our technology, but it's also the people that are fighting this pandemic, that are like the nurses, that are heroes in the community, and like the physicians who really go out there and put the patient first, and they fight for not getting that amputation, not letting them suffer the quality of life. So we're very lucky to have those physicians as well in Alberta and healthcare workers. So a big shout out to them, because we really admire and we see them part of the NanoTess team too.
Do you have anything to add to that, Megan? 3 years from now?
2 years from now? No, I hope to see our technology on the global stage. So Canada has been our tremendous launch pad. This is the perfect environment for us to learn, grow, and also be able to share this technology with our friends and family, our community. I hope that we can do the same cross borders so that we're able to continue to provide this care to those who need them most, especially in countries where the amount that's needed to pay for private healthcare can create inaccessible barriers, which is part of why NanoTess was designed, as Julian mentioned, as a social enterprise. So really eliminating those barriers so that life-saving or limb-saving care can be provided to all.
I love that. So we already know what the future is going to look like. So as long as we keep supporting each other in this life sciences ecosystem in Calgary and beyond, we you are going to prevent all of those the problems that face. I'm sure you can say the statistics around wound problems around the world on a global scale. So what would the world look like when you reach full commercialization? Your technology is readily available and affordable and accessible all around the world.
Yeah, I think we've been tagging on to the saying right now that chronic wounds is a silent pandemic. It is a massive problem. So the statistic is every 20 seconds, someone will lose a limb due to diabetic foot ulcers, and that's just one type of chronic wound. The crazy part of it is for those who undergo amputation due to diabetic foot ulcers, their 5-year mortality rate is second only to lung cancer. So it's higher than any other form of cancer. The problem is also more expensive than the top 5 forms of cancer. And it's something that prior to NanoTess, I personally had never heard of. Now I see it everywhere. It is really a problem that part of what we are trying to do at NanoTess is raise awareness on, because it can be mitigated through prevention tools and early intervention. And in a world where we're fully available, where we've built the ecosystem of partners on the prevention end all the way to the treatment end, this is no longer a silent pandemic, but a problem that we have solutions for, and we're making traction to lowering those crazy statistics.
I envision a world where if you're in Canada and you're told that you're diabetic, they teach you about your insulin, but they also teach you about here. Be careful with wounds. Be careful with cuts and scrapes. We've had patients that they stepped on a belt buckle and lost their feet, or their cat scratched them and then became a massive ulcer. So it's that awareness piece, educational piece, and the exciting part that all these technologies that are actually happening in Alberta, that together we could really tackle this problem. So I definitely envision a world like that.
Great answers. I'm inspired, and we talked about the human impact that you are going to create. And I just love this next question because it's a question around our fur babies. Do you plan on expanding into the vet clinics for the fur babies?
Yes, indeed. So we are actually working with a fantastic group of students out of the University of Calgary for their engineering capstone to transform our formulation for animal care. We've personally been able to see the benefit in animals. We have a small dog. We are fur parents ourselves, a small dog. And we were able to use our human product for her, and it's incredible. Saved us a lot of time in the comb. So we really appreciated it. And I think there's so much shift towards our fur babies now in the role that they play within our lives and our mental health than there ever used to be. And if we can support there, then we're bettering human impact overall as well. So that's the way we view it. So more coming soon on the animal care, but yes, it's on top of mind.
Oh, that is so exciting. As a fellow dog lover, I'll be a big champion of that. We have another great question by Jeff. You mentioned many of the supports that are available in the ecosystem, but are there areas where the ecosystem falls short, or areas where we could collectively advocate for more resources or support?
Yeah, I think we are in the perfect stage of the company with support from Biohubx to be in a place where we're fully supported. We're really fortunate that we're one of the few entities that were able to get into the Biospace 1. I think there is a definite need for more space for the growing companies coming out of the university or privately developed, like NanoTess. And then there's a next stage. So creating more resources for the emerging life science ecosystem we have right now with entities like Biohubx, so that people can move into private spaces, be in a community, learn from their neighbors next door like we do on their medical device and life science path. But then the next step of being, so you're scaling and you're growing, how do you do that? Every step we go on as a founder it's a first time. So learning how we can make a sustainable scaling model for these life science companies, because our journey is very long, in a way that we can streamline some of those pitfalls, just exactly like what Biohubx did for our scale out of university and into community. I think we can use that tenfold, hundredfold.
I think we always talk about it that you're always like one contract away to be like, okay, where's Biospace 2? Because we need to keep growing. and that's kind of what we share amongst the startups in those spaces where we have amazing neighbors like Scientia that we always discuss the opportunities and collaboration. We have coalitions, and that the ability to have the ecosystem fulfill part of that work, that it always needs to happen. It's really important so that we can laser focus on the startup and not on trying to get operational pieces.
One of the biggest, like the example for those who aren't familiar with Biohubx is, if you think about what we have to do in our day-to-day to get this technology to the market, some of the aspects that are being covered through our association with Biohubx is who cleans our lab coats, who comes in and cleans our space, who deals with security so that we have access control permissions. These are all projects that would consume time away from the startup achieving their primary goal. And when you're little, that time saved is incredibly valuable on achieving growth milestones that will get you to a point where eventually you can hire someone to figure out who cleans our lab coats or who deposits our waste from chemical waste. So there's so many questions that when you're in an ecosystem, you can defer to later, knowing that you have a connection who can teach you everything you need should you grow to the next level of commercialization.
Wow, the things you don't think about when first starting a company, hey?
Yeah, Julian was like, how do we get a fire permit, a building license? How do you get the fire department to come and do an inspection? There's so many little tiny things, and we're really lucky because we have people who've already done it next door in the Biohubx that we can just ask, and we can give now that we've done it too to others.
That's great. I mean, that's how an ecosystem works. So it sounds like it's exciting for Alberta, because honestly, like 3-5 years ago, I wouldn't say the ecosystem was very mature or developed to the point that it's at right now. So it's a great time to start a company in Calgary. I have another couple of questions. What's the biggest stigma you've faced building your company? There's always a lot of naysayers when you're trying to do something really big and exciting. So curious what you've been facing.
I think that's something that every founder is going to have to. We've had the stigma of like, you're not a doctor, how you're going to life science, and then we've also had talks with founders that are doctors, and they get told, you're not a business person, how are you building a company? So there's always going to be a naysayer, and that's, I think, what's the biggest learning, that it's how to communicate. Yes, there's advantages and disadvantages of our current situation, but it's not stopping us. I think,
and this is strategically what we've done to plug some of those perceived gaps. Not being afraid to leverage your advisors and tell them too, so they know, to help play that role in the areas that you're missing or less developed in. So we lean heavily on our network to help fill some of those roles. And the great thing about doing that as well for the founders in the room is when it comes from a third-party person, it may not even be an advisor. It may just be someone in the community, like a doctor using our technology. When it comes from them and not the company, and they're not being paid or compensated in any way for NanoTess's success, it means a whole lot more. We could preach the technology all day, every day, and when they come in and say, hey, you know what? This is really good. Everyone's just, oh, okay. And we're like, wow, it was really that easy. You just needed someone else to say it. So I think that was one of the biggest pieces that we're starting to learn through this process is find your champions and give them the tools they need to be able to tell your story or speak on behalf of your product and set them up in scenarios where they can do that.
And I think it's about, we've had the stigmas as well, like, you guys look really young. I have kids like look older than you. So we're like, okay. So is find the going back to that golden nugget behind the reason of why they're saying that, and how do we approach that? So we've had other founders that we talked to, and it's like they told me I was too old. So it's always there's just a risk that they see, and then how do you mitigate that risk? And then you have your advisors, you're building your team, and it's making sure that our jobs as founders is how to minimize that perceived risk. So hopefully that it's a good advice for future founders.
I think it's great advice, and thank you so much for all of your generous time and valuable advice to everyone else in the ecosystem. I think you're both believers in what goes around comes around and have experienced it firsthand. So now I need to ask, so if you never know who's on the other end of this video, so what would be the one thing you need right now to continue your success at NanoTess?
I think the immediate need right now is team. So we're entering a very exciting point in time where we have a lot of interest from community for our product, and we need to grow the arms and legs of NanoTess to be able to make those turn into realities. We're really looking for people who are problem solvers, background agnostic, willing to jump in and learn new things, and really have that generalist mindset. We can teach the skills, we can pair up with advisors to teach skills, but we need a person who's comfortable one day mopping the laboratory, boxing tubes, and then the next day going on and creating a go-to-market strategy in Mexico. It could be anything. So if that sounds like you, it sounds exciting to you, or you know someone like that who would be motivated by the ambiguity and solving problems that no one has yet asked or defined, then we want to hear from them. So send them our way.
Wow, what an incredible opportunity, and I hope that it's in the wind and people will catch word that there is this huge opportunity for anyone who wants to make the impact that you're going to make in this world. So thank you for that and sharing the opportunity, and I hope someone's listening who can jump on board and be a perfect fit for NanoTess. That's all for questions. Thank you so much for all of your time. This is another great Biohubx Expert Corner. And if you have any final words, now's your time. Otherwise, we will see everyone for the next Expert Corner by Biohub. Any final thoughts?
Thank you for having us, Crystal.
Yes, thank you to yourself and the team at Biohubx for coordinating and putting this together so we can share our story.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.